Joe can't go until his entire family's asleep. What is up, everybody? Welcome back to Taste Like Music. It's a very special week here on the channel. We're doing something a little different this week that we've never done before. We are doing a year instead of an artist. We are doing a little bit of a deep dive here on 1972. We did the albums of the year already, that series. We each gave 5, and 5 was pretty limiting. I think it didn't allow us to really get too deep into kind of like the other sides of our taste. Like if you're only looking at the very tippy top, you don't really get a full picture of everything we like. So we wanted to go a little deeper, and we also wanted to explore some more stuff. So this gave us a chance to listen to other things. I listened to a ton of stuff over the last 3 months or so from 1972, got into some little nooks and crannies of the year that I hadn't ever listened to before. So it was a lot of fun. And after doing that, I still find that maybe doing 25 albums, which is what we're doing, isn't even quite enough. There's still stuff missing and still things that won't be talked about this week. So can never get it all in, but we're going to do our best to touch on as many different things as we can. I'm just going to read through my 25. It's all me in this episode. I'm doing my 25. Joe and Cram will each have their own episodes this week. They are here to lend some commentary, though. We'll pause periodically throughout my list and let them comment. So here we go. All right. 24 of these I feel very confident about. He's got the red pen out. 24 of these I feel very confident about. 25 was very, very tough to decide. There were a handful of records kind of fighting for this spot, maybe 5 or so. And I'm probably going to go with the one that is going to upset the most people. My number 25 is Homecoming by America. This is a terminally unhip band, but I think their sun-soaked harmonies just really hit the spot for me. They're kind of like a little bit of a softer, smoother version of the popular folk rock sounds of the time. Here they add a bit more electric guitar and piano to their sound. They sort of fill things out a little bit more. This record's best known for the track Ventura Highway, which is a great tune. But there's a lot of great tunes here. Each singer-songwriter in the band writes 3 tracks. Plus you get a great John Martin cover here, Head and Heart. My favorite track here is Only in Your Heart, which marries the Beatles' For No One with Graham Nash's Our House. I think it's a really great little pop tune. So that is my number 25. My number 24 is a record we've talked about on the channel before. It is Bare Trees by Fleetwood Mac. This is the 6th Fleetwood Mac studio record, the last one with Danny Kirwan. I'm a big fan of the combination of Kirwan and Welch together. They only made 2 albums in that configuration, but I think they play off of each other really well. And I think there's an idea among some people that Fleetwood Mac went from basically being a blues band to being a pop band when Buckingham and Nicks joined. But in reality, it was a much slower evolution. And Bare Trees is like a very interesting blend of a lot of different things: blues, rock, folk, psychedelia, and pop. Each of the 3 songwriters bring a different vibe to the record, and I think all of those tracks still live comfortably side by side here. So really like this one. Number 23, another record that we have ranked, this band. I've got the self-titled debut from Roxy Music. A lot of my list may not be like the most revolutionary stuff. I tend to sort of favor execution and great songs and production over being groundbreaking. But this debut album is something entirely different, both in sound and in presentation. It's glammy, it's campy, and there's almost like a punk-like urgency to it. Eno's electronic racket kind of predicts the future of pop, while the band kind of simultaneously reaches back to 50s and 60s rock touchstones for inspiration. Tracks like Remake, Remodel, and Virginia Plain are essential rock and roll tracks. And, with Ferry not in full-on crooner mode yet, here his voice kind of teeters on the edge of control a lot, and it brings a really exciting element to the tunes. I dig it a lot. Number 22 is a record that I expect both of you to have on your list, and I expect you to both have it much higher than I do. I've got Harvest by Neil Young. Boy, did I burn out on Neil when we ranked him on the channel. doing his full discography. We did give ourselves 2 weeks instead of 1 for that, but it was still too much. I don't think I've listened to him at all since then, but coming back to Harvest during this little project, it just continues to be undeniable. It's wonderfully warm, great sounding record. Songwriting is superb. I think most people, when they think of this record, they think of like these great country folk tunes, which there are plenty of here, but he also includes these really lush, heavily orchestrated tracks like A Man Needs a Maid and There's a World. He also rocks it up a bit on Alabama and Words, which is probably my favorite track on the record. So there's a lot more depth here than I think most people think of when they think of this record. So there's some very different stuff here, and I think all the songs work well. And I think when you listen to it, you even though there's different material here, you kind of get a singular feeling from all of it. Really good, cohesive record. Now, my last one in this first batch, just missing out on the top 20, is Can't Buy a Thrill by Steely Dan. The Dan introduced themselves with this Latin jazz groove before a guitar solo with sitar effect comes in, and then there's this really bizarre synth that enters the picture. Just a really interesting way to make yourselves known to the world. I think we often think like the most unique and forward-thinking bands are those that are like pushing hard against the establishment. And Steely Dan, I think, achieved inimitability simply by being better and smarter than everybody else. This is like highbrow rock for sure, but not as much as they would become. There's still a great band feel on this record and enough rough edges to keep it really interesting, really cool. Love the guitar playing on it. So that's my number 21.
What was the 26 that America beat out?
We'll talk about that later.
Oh, okay. And do you want to do any spoilers? Are you going to have any live albums? Just so everyone knows, we can do live albums in this list.
That's true. I forgot to mention that. Unlike our previous albums of the year series, live albums are in play. And I guess I can say there is one in my top 25.
So far, very interesting highs and lows. One of the albums you mentioned is my 103rd favorite of the year. And a couple more might be, I had Can't Buy a Thrill in my top 5 in my initial album of the year series. So your top and bottom looks like so far. It's a wide variety.
Shall we move into the top 20?
Sure.
Let me kick off my top 20 with a record that is often mistakenly referred to as Saturate before using. I've got the self-titled Jackson Browne record. This is the sound of the early 70s. And I think that sound was largely molded by David Geffen and his Asylum label. He was trying to get a deal for Jackson Browne, and he went to Ahmet Ertegun, and Ertegun convinced Geffen to just start his own label, and that's what he did. Ultimately, the first signing to Asylum was Laura Nyro, but eventually they got Browne as well. And I think even though Jackson Browne has better albums than this, I think you'll find nothing but top-notch songwriting here. Every song, I think, is a virtual how-to guide for aspiring songwriters. And like so many of the records on the Asylum label, it's chock full of amazing players like Russ Kunkel, Leland Sklar. You got Clarence White on a track, Crosby, Nash, Jesse Ed Davis, Albert Lee, Sneaky Pete, all those people. So just top-notch musicians all through. And like I said, the songs are amazing. Jamaica Say You Will, A Child in These Hills, Song for Adam, Doctor My Eyes, Rock Me on the Water, just all top-notch songs. And, the fact that this was just the beginning for Browne is remarkable. I think it's a fantastic display of his writing. Number 19, I've got Volume 4 by Black Sabbath. The inventors of heavy metal, just buried in a mountain of cocaine, starting to get weird, and it just keeps getting better and better. I think the weirder they got during this era, the better they were. They do a ballad like Changes, and suddenly nothing is off the table for them. It's just anything they want to do, and they do it all so well. It's an album full of unexpected twists and turns, incredible riffage, surprising tenderness in spots, and just newfound musicality, I think. And I think only the tip of the iceberg is I think 3 of their best albums were even still to come after this. Number 18, this may be surprising to people. This was a part of my exploration this past month or two. I'm going with Young, Gifted, and Black by Aretha Franklin. This was already Aretha's 18th studio album. She won the Best Female R&B Vocal Performance Grammy for this. It's a mix of a few original tunes and covers pulled from all kinds of like disparate sources. You got Elton John tunes, Beatles tunes, Nina Simone songs, a bunch of great players on this record: Donny Hathaway, Billy Preston, Chuck Rainey, Bernard Purdy, Eric Gale, the Memphis Horns. So top notch players. It sounds great, really well recorded, really amazing sounding record, but none of the other things on the record, the other players or the way it's recorded or anything, outshine Aretha. Her vocals here are incredible. Her voice, I think, is in top form. The tunes are great. She does really good interpretations of the covers, and her originals are really strong. You've got Rock Steady on this one, probably the most well-known of the tunes here. And I'm no Aretha expert. I don't know the ins and outs of her catalog, but I know, a few others that are very highly regarded. But this, for me, just had it all. I thought it was awesome. Great record. In another vein, my number 17 is The Willie Way by Willie Nelson. This was Willie's 15th studio album, and it came during a bit of a transitional period. This was his final record that he made for RCA before his popularity really boomed with the rise of outlaw country a little bit later in the 70s. But this record sounds like anything but a contractual obligation. You Left a Long, Long Time Ago is a killer country tune. It opens the record. So good. There's a great cover here of Chris Christopherson's Help Me Make It Through the Night, which is excellent. A Moment Isn't Very Long is a great track as well. Willie's voice sounds really good here. There's great playing all over the record. I still have one country record higher than this on my list, but this is a fantastic record, a great set of tunes delivered as only Willie can. And then closing out this round of records, number 16, I've got Son of Schmielsen by Harry Nilsson. This one is often lost in the long shadow cast by Nilsson Schmielsen, but Son of Schmielsen is almost equally brilliant. It's a bit darker and less accessible, I think, so maybe that's why it kind of gets overlooked a bit, but I think it's great. The pressure of following up a massive hit like that previous record, compounded with the fact that he was going through a bad divorce, results in kind of a much more scattered record. It's less focused, I think, but the tunes are great, and I think they reveal a lot more sides of Harry's writing. You've got lines in songs like I Sang My Balls Off for You, Baby on take 54, which is really funny, or You're Breaking My Heart, You're Tearing It Apart, so fuck you. Kind of shows how he was dealing with these difficult situations with a sense of humor. But then you also get these like devastating, crushing songs like Remember Christmas and Turn On Your Radio, which are super pretty. I think some may have been let down by this album, but I think you get even more of a sense of the man himself here. And I love the record for that reason. So there you go. There's 5 more.
Ooh, Harry Nelson's pretty overrated. You really overrate him. And I'm wondering, I have one country album on my list. So I'm wondering if yours that's higher is the one I have, but I don't think so.
So are we into 5-star territory for you yet, Jason? I'd like to know. We're still dabbling 4.5.
We filled out the top 25 with 4.5s, but we don't get to the 5s until number 12. I've got 12 5 stars.
Okay. Good to know. Good to know. So these are all excellent records that don't quite reach that sacred 5th star for you.
We are not at 5 stars yet, but we will get there in this next set of records. And you also don't have to wait long to find out what the country album is, because it is number 15. It is Ladies Love Outlaws by Waylon Jennings. This was also released by RCA, and like Willie, Waylon was in a transition here. This is because of the title of this record and the title of the title track, Ladies Love Outlaws, kind of where the term outlaw country came from. Jennings says that the album was released without his final approval and that many of the tracks on the record contain scratch vocals, but his vocals on this record are unreal. If you like Sturgill Simpson, it's crazy how much he sounds like Waylon during this period. Sounds exactly like him. The vocals here are just raw and real and powerful. I love the singing on this record. There's only a few original tunes here, but the selection of songs is stellar. You've got his version of Hoyt Axton's Never Been to Spain, which is incredible. You've also got Delta Dawn, which Tanya Tucker had a big hit with during the same year. And you've also got a cover of Buck Owens' Under Your Spell Again, which is great. I think it's a really cool record, one that changed the direction of country music in the 70s, and I think rightfully so. Number 14 is another possibly surprising one. I've got To Whom It May Concern by the Bee Gees. This album marked the end of an era for the Bee Gees as well. A lot of artists seeming to be going through sort of transitional periods here in 72. This was their last record they recorded at IBC Studios, the last one with their common collaborator and arranger, Bill Shepherd, and also the last under contract with Robert Stigwood. I think it's an album full of wonderfully orchestrated pop, big, grand, ornate, still a number of years away from the Saturday Night Fever blockbuster, but I think starting to move slightly away from the psychedelic 60s a bit. In fact, the album title even refers to the fact that they weren't really sure who their audience was at this point, To Whom It May Concern. So they're kind of like feeling their way through things here. But I think the material is really good. The songwriting is strong. And of course, their singing is great. Their harmonies are amazing. The orchestration just sweeps in big strings, lifts every track to epic heights. I think the Bee Gees are highly underrated. They seem to get all the attention put on the Saturday Night Fever era. But I think they've got much better stuff in their catalog. And this is a brilliant record. I think it's really good. Number 13. This is a record that I started at 4.5, and then I bumped it up to 5, and then I moved it back to 4.5 within the last month or so. So right on the cusp. But sticking at 4.5 for now is number 1 record by Big Star. And I think, thank God, Big Star have finally been given their due. A great band, and this is a great record. And I think as good as their other records are, there's something about the Chris Bell and Alex Chilton being together that makes this one extra special. I think just about every song here is great. But for me, it's the slower songs that deliver the most for me. Ballad of El Goodo, 13, Give Me Another Chance, Try Again, Watch the Sunrise are, I think now, rite of passage tunes for coming of age as a music nerd. They're just great, great songs, crushing and beautiful. And I think it's criminal that these guys didn't get more love in their prime. Fantastic record. Maybe a surprising 5-star record at my number 12. I've got Fresh Raspberries. Don't Let the Leisure Suits on the cover fool you. The Raspberries' second album rocks. Some of the best power pop of the era. 10 songs, 31 minutes, just lean and mean. Great tunes, not a dud in the bunch. And the hooks just do not let up on this record. This is their second record of 72, and I think it's a good bit better than their first one. Just tuneful, hard-edged, sweet, fun, rock and pop. Great ballads like Let's Pretend. You get a little bit of country flavor on a track like Going Nowhere Tonight, and groovy rockers like Every Way I Can. It's kind of birdsy at times. Other times it reminds me of the Hollies. Just really great 60s pop, basically, with an extra edge to it for the 70s. I think it's great stuff. And then just missing my top 10 is the one live album that I've got. It's a 5-star record. I've got Rock of Ages by the band. This is one of my favorite live albums ever. I think it's even better than The Last Waltz. The band, basically at their peak here, gelling so well as a band and as players together, just playing off of each other so well. And then you add to the mix the amazing horn arrangements from Alan Toussaint. It just takes things to another level. Don't Do It, Caledonia Mission, W.S. Walcott Medicine Show, and Across the Great Divide, I think, just completely come alive in this context in a way that the studio versions just don't. I think The Last Waltz is a great celebration of the band, but this is the band at the top of their game, and it's amazing.
There's no way that Bee Gees album is better than Harvest by Neil Young. Give me a break. What a joke. No way.
Well, we know Jason's going to throw some curveballs. He does not adhere to the established order of greatness of the usual rankings, that's for sure, but wide variety at least.
Let's take a quick guess of some stuff that's definitely gonna be in the top 10. I'm gonna say Pink Moon, Machine Head. That's all I'm really counting on. Ziggy Stardust will definitely be in there. I don't know what else. All the Young Dudes.
So I guess this means there's no Rolling Stones.
Yeah, there's no way Exile on the Main Street makes his top 10.
No, there's no way it's a 5-star for him, so we can't be there.
I thought the live album was going to be Made in Japan too by Deep Purple. He's souring on Deep Purple a little bit. Look how he's trying to like have a poker face over there.
Interesting guesses. Shall we do it? Shall we get into the top 10? Number 10, a record by an artist that we have ranked. I've got Sail Away by Randy Newman. A perfect culmination of his first two albums, I think. He takes the best elements of both. You got the killer songs from 12 songs with the great melodies and great arrangements of his debut. I think it's a lyrically brilliant record. Always more than meets the eye with Randy Newman. The misdirect of Sail Away, making such a dark song sound so patriotic to kind of point out the hypocrisies, is so genius. Old Man, I think, is a really crushing song about dying as a non-believer. You've got all this dark humor, sarcasm, and satire, all the hallmarks of Newman's writing, all on display and all super sharp here. The music works so well as a storytelling device too. It's not just about the lyrics. I think the music matches the tunes so well and does so much for the stories that he's trying to tell. Really helps to paint the picture. And I think that's really evidenced on a track like Dayton, Ohio, 1903. I think Newman is so much more than the soundtrack guy, so much more than the Pixar guy and like the butt of the Family Guy jokes, which are hilarious. But if that's all you know Randy Newman from, then I think this album will really knock you out and everyone should listen to it. I think it is absolutely amazing. Number 9, I've got Ennismore by Colin Blunstone. This is Blunstone's second solo record. I think Colin Blunstone has one of the greatest voices of all time. Something that I remember Cram pointing out to me right when we first started hanging out together. I know he thought highly of him then. Can't say I've heard Cram mention him much since then, but I think Blunstone could sing almost anything and I would love it. But on top of just having a great voice, I think his first couple solo records are full of great songs and beautiful production. It's crazy to me that these albums weren't massive hits, or that they at least haven't had like a big star Nick Drake type of renaissance since their initial release. I don't know, maybe they just came out at the wrong time, coming out in 72. They do definitely sound more like 60s records, but it's just some of the most gorgeous Baroque pop type of stuff that I've ever heard. I could listen to it all day. I Don't Believe in Miracles, exclusively for me. I Want Some, I think, are all just brilliant songs, and there's a bunch of other great songs on there too. So just a beautiful record. Really love it. Number 8 is one that Cram had pegged for my top 10. It is Machine Head by Deep Purple. You know, one of the most ubiquitous guitar riffs ever can be found here, but there's so much more to Machine Head, and I don't think its influence can be overstated. If you look at where hard rock went in the 80s, all the shredders and the neoclassical stuff, all those types of licks and things, all of that traces back to Blackmore and Lord, I think. Ian Gillan's wailing vocals, I think, were every bit as influential as Robert Plant's. This album rocks super hard from start to finish, but it does so with a lot of finesse. Ian Pace is almost like a jazz drummer, just incredible feel, gives the band a very different pocket than someone like John Bonham. Just a very different hard rock band from Zeppelin and Sabbath, but equally influential. And I think this record is a hard rock masterpiece. Number 7, Joe will be pleased to hear that it is Music of My Mind by Stevie Wonder. This is thought of as the start of his classic period. He got a new contract with Motown, who had been loosening the reins, but he's really just completely cut loose here. And Stevie just soars. It says first with the Tonto synth, which brings all these new sounds and textures. An effortless record, I think. The music is just flowing forth from Stevie. You've got bits of R&B and jazz and pop and psych and electronic. It's soulful, it's groovy, it even rocks it quite a bit. There's great production. It sounds great, but it's still 100% about great songwriting. Never gets too experimental with his newfound freedom. Keeps it grounded in great tunes, good melodies. Superwoman, Love Having You Around, I Love Every Little Thing About You, Evil, Happier Than the Morning Sun, just tons of great songs. And it's just incredible that he was still only 21 years old when he did this record. It's just amazing. And then for the longtime viewers of the channel, this is the one change to my top 5. This record has fallen out. It is Pink Moon by Nick Drake at number 6. It is a gorgeous and hauntingly beautiful record. Drake's guitar is like a full orchestra here. Most of the record is just guitar and voice. There's a little bit of piano here and there, but it doesn't feel that sparse. It feels so full and so rich. He's using all these great open tunings, and it just sounds massive. And there's all this mythology built around his depression and the fact that he died right after this. And I think people think of this as a very sad record, but I don't really think of it that way. His family said that he couldn't record depressed and that he had to be in good spirits to record, and that he was very proud of this record. And so I kind of look at it that way too. I hear it as a very calm, soothing, relaxing record. I think it's a very peaceful record. I love listening to it late at night when I'm like trying to sleep. I just think it is really, really gorgeous. So there you go. We got 5 left.
Okay. Slider, Ziggy Stardust, all the young dudes. It's got to be 3 of the 5, right? Right?
Maybe some Lou Reed. There's not going to be any prog. We know that. There's not a hint of prog on this list, which is odd since 1972 is probably the greatest year for prog ever. Probably not Elton John, no Joni Mitchell. I have no idea what else could be on here.
Is there Wait Talking Book not that high up?
Yeah, it's weird. I don't know what else it could be. Carl and the Passions, so tough.
Ooh, la, 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 la. He does love the Beach Boys. Yeah, your list is very Jason so far. I thought there'd be a little more country on it, but it looks like we have maybe like 5 albums in common so far. But let's go. Let's see what you got.
Same.
All right. So you've got me pegged for 3 of them in the 5. There's a major Jason core record that you're forgetting about. Then
Todd Rundgren.
There you go.
Todd. Sheesh.
But there's also one surprise, and that is number 5, the new entry in my top 5. It is Bored Civilians by Keith Cross and Peter Ross. This record came out of nowhere, took my life by storm. I discovered this while trying to dig up obscure tunes for the video that we did with Michael Ralt. I was like searching around on Reddit, and I found someone mention this record. Talked about the song in that video, but this whole record is just incredible. I think it's a great example of like American West Coast singer-songwriters and the Laurel Canyon sound having this huge impact on the British rock of the era. Keith Cross is emerging from the British progressive rock band T2. Peter Ross is from the band Hookfoot. You've got Nick Lowe playing guitar on it. You got Dee Murray from Elton's band playing bass. Jimmy Hastings playing some of the woodwind stuff here, bringing a little British progginess to the affair here, but not a prog record. It is much more of a singer-songwriter, folk rock, country rock type of thing. The songs are excellent, melodic, tuneful, great harmonies, terrific arrangements. Truly, truly a remarkable record. I think it needs to be rescued from obscurity. It has been reissued, but I think even more people still need to hear it. I think it's an amazing record. Bored Civilians. Number 4, Something Anything by Todd Rundgren. One of my favorite artists of all time, should be no surprise to anybody who's ever seen this channel. This is just, I think everything sort of coming together for Todd. His songwriting is just really blooming, but he's also discovering his full, strength in the studio, experimenting, playing all of the instruments on 3 of the 4 album sides. Then you get the 4th side, which allows him to kind of flex a different muscle, playing with other musicians. Tons of great tunes. I Saw the Light, Hello, It's Me, Black Mariah, Couldn't I Just Tell You, all of these great 70s songwriter type of songs. You've also got him sort of showing his humor a little more on this than he had on his first 2 solo records, Song of the Viking and Sounds of the Studio, where he's just kind of talking about different noises that you could possibly hear on records. I just think it's great. I think if it was only the hits, it would be a much more boring record. I think you get to see all sides of Todd here, and it's a really great, dynamic, fun record to listen to because of that. Number 3, I have got All the Young Dudes by Mott the Hoople. Just a really great rock and roll record. I guess by this point in their career, having hooked up with Bowie, they would be considered a glam band, but I don't think this is a very glammy record. I think it's more of a hard-nosed kind of rock record with a little bit of glammy flair to it. Their cover of Sweet Jane, I love. Suckers, Great Jerk and Crocus. All the Young Dudes, of course, is incredible. You got ballads like Sea Diver, which show off a different side to the band. I just think one of my favorite rock and roll bands ever. We've talked about on the channel before, and this is just them kind of like hitting a sort of a peak. There are records that I like more, but I don't know if there's a more essential Mott the Hoople record, at least for newbies. Number 2, I would go with The Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars. I've given a big spiel on this record before. During Bowie Week is my favorite Bowie album. It is in my roughly sketched out unofficial top 10 records of all time. I think it is a rock and roll masterpiece. I love it. I love that he's doing like this big grand concept type of thing. But, he's not getting all proggy with it. It is 1972, and there may be some temptation to go a little more pretentious or something with it. But I think it's just a great rock record. The songs are so good. His voice is incredible here. The band is great. 5 Years, Soul Love, Moon Age Daydream, Starman, Lady Stardust, the title track, Suffragette City, Rock and Roll Suicide, Hang On to Yourself. Just so many good songs. I love it. And then number 1, everybody knows it is The Slider by T-Rex. I talked about it ad nauseum. It is my favorite album of 72. It is my favorite album of the 70s. It is also in my top 10 favorite albums of all time. I think of these big 3 type of glam records that are at the top of my list here. This is the glammiest, the glitziest, just Mark Bolan just strutting all over this thing. So much attitude, so much coolness, just great charisma. There are a lot of acoustic songs on this record, actually, but they don't feel like his previous like folky incarnation. It's just this amazing vibe. It's just like a disco ball, glitter everywhere, confetti. It's just an amazing rock and roll record. I love it. I love the lyrics, the weirdness of them, the kind of like free association type of lyric writing that he does. It's just super cool. So yeah, there you go. Final thoughts from you guys before we get to your lists?
Disappointed there's not more live stuff. Disappointed of some ghastly omissions. But it's your list, and I thought you talked great about everything, so well done.
Yeah, it's an interesting list. Very, very diverse. I like that. A lot of classics missing, but I think that's to be expected. I think in the end, about 10 in common with you. So I don't know, less than I expected. Thought there'd be a little more, but you love that West Coast singer-songwriter kind of stuff that is not going to make a top 25 for me in 72.
It'll be interesting to see if I have more with Joe or Jason. I think it might be Joe, just because of like the proggier stuff, but we'll see.
Yes, no, not a single sniff of prog for Jason tonight.
All right, everybody. So let me have it down in the comments for all of those classics that I left off, but let me know what you think of the list. You can drop your own list down there as well. You can drop it on all of our videos this week. We are doing things a bit differently this week. You can look out for my top 25 songs later today if you're catching these as they're dropping. And then each of us will have our own day. Joe's albums and songs will be on the same day, as will Cram's. So watch out for all of those videos dropping. Stay tuned. Make sure you hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications. You can also find links in the video description to things like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Patreon, website, merch. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one.